So Scott Lawton was playing 18 minutes a night, is now playing 15 minutes a night. Now his shooting percentage is way down. Like I just, to me, first round pick seems
steep.
How desperate. Now here's another one, and I'm wondering about this player. Would you pay a first rounder for a guy who has 15 goals, 18 assists, 33 points in 49 games?
Sounds good.
Do you like that? He's a centerman.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of experience at the NHL level. He's on a terrible team. And we know we don't care much about plus minus, but this guy is still a +1 on this terrible
Let
team.
me guess. Adam Henrique.
That's right.
Yes.
Whoa!
I would 100%.
Adam Henrique has surprised me this year.
That's
He's 5 points behind his total points from last year. And like, again, we look at like Simon Benoit's numbers
Right.
with the Ducks
They
last
don't
year.
count.
Abominable.
They don't count.
Adam Henrique.
Yeah,
That's
if
not
you,
bad.
If you
what I
play
just told you.
fantasy hockey, he's a great waiver wire pickup if he's available in your league. Go get him because he's most likely in a month going to be on a much better team, and those numbers are going to spike a little bit even more.
Oh,
He's not a bad player. He just makes too much. Like,
right.
I think the big issue there is the Ducks have to retain half.
But they won't.
Yeah. Is he still making 5.8?
Like even that,
so.
it's 5.825, and he's a UFA. Like you can eat that for 2 months.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
I'm just saying a lot of teams can't take that on. They need you to retain.
And if Anaheim retains, it's for 2 months. So everything's fine here. I think there's a deal to be had for Adam Henrique, and the retaining thing's important. Because it opens up where he can go, and that first round pick is even more valuable if you're not taking on the cap space to do for the other team taking him back, and they can now do another move because Adam Henrique only cost them 2.3.
Jesse, I can't see it there with the screen.
What would you like?
Okay. You know, I know apparently the rumor was Radko Gudas could have come to the Leafs this year and he chose Anaheim, but man, wouldn't that be great?
Could always
$4 million for 2 more years after this one.
get the Boosh train.
Oh, I don't know if I'm not like Bush is fine, but Radko Gudas gets my heart pumping. That would be great.
It ain't happening.
Nick Dowd. Dowd would
first.
Now the rumor is, because the center market's hot, Tyler Johnson is also coming back too, so that's somebody to watch out for. We'll get to him in a second. Nick Dowd, probably not a first, but might be a second.
Oh man.
Nick Dowd, who's been with the surprisingly good and then surprisingly bad Washington Capitals, 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points in 40 games, plays about 15 minutes a night.
I think Nick Dowd would look good on the Toronto Maple Leafs because of the contract. It's 1.3 this year, 1.3 next year. And one thing that's important with the Leafs is they need cheap bodies for next year. And there's a guy who can play center at a very reasonable price, way like anywhere in the lineup, really.
I would like that, and I would like that sooner rather than later, because you know what else it gives the Leafs a chance to do? Something I've been talking about for over a month. I want to see Max Domi on the wing.
Yeah.
Again,
At the beginning of the season, he played with David Kampf. That does not count. It never made any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Get a guy who's good and will help you, and I want to see how Max plays with him.
That's why I want Adam Henrique, and I know he's the top of the list. The Leafs would be stupid not to trade their first rounder, I think, this year. They'd be stupid. Like you have a couple more years.
I don't think they can move it.
Well, they may not be able to, but I think, my personal opinion, and I've just sort of made up my mind this week, you have this year and next year essentially before you got to make a call on Marner. You better do it now. Henrique kills penalties. Yeah. Imagine him with Domi and Yarncroke.
Anaheim.
That's a pretty good little third line.
I like Nick Dowd a lot better. One, it won't cost you as much. And if they move the first round pick this year, that means they won't have a pick in the top 2 of the draft until 1 pick in 2026, which is, I don't think you can do that to your farm system. And with Henrique, it's only a rental. With Nick Dowd, you get him for this year and next year, which I think is really crucial to build.
So would you give a third for that?
If they can get him for a third, I think it's gonna cost a little bit more.
Yeah,
but it'll be a third and something.
Okay,
that's all they have.
The other issue there is, I think they could get Henrique half retained, and they would still need to move money off the roster.
Yeah. I don't like a rental this year doesn't make sense for the Leafs, like a pure strictly rental. So I don't know. Adam Henrique might be off the table.
No, Nick Dowd, it's exactly the sort of trade I've been asking for. So yeah, no, I'm on board with that.
Tyler Johnson, who has had his injuries, but when he was great in Tampa, he was truly known for his playoff performances. He is getting ready to come back off injury reserve. He's played 36 games, had 9 goals, 4 assists, 13 points. Don't look at anything else in his stats because it doesn't really matter.
Horrible.
They're horrible.
Yeah, they're horrible.
And like I look at Henrique's and I'm like, on a good team, is Henrique scoring that much? Probably not. Somebody in Anaheim has to score.
Probably on the ice for fewer goals against.
I call it the Ryan Dzingel effect, because when Ryan Dzingel kept getting traded at the deadline, it's like, oh, he scored so much for the Center. It's like, well, somebody's got to score. Dzingel's not a first liner on any other team. I feel the same way with Henrique, even though I still think he's valuable. Tyler Johnson is an interesting one because he's a warrior. He was fast, but I don't know what his mobility is like. His face-off percentage is like way down from what it used to be. It's like 42% this year, where it was like 50 and 60% before.
So that's a tough one. Like, is he still a center? Is he still a full-time center?
Yeah. I mean, you got to think the Blackhawks hope that they can move him.
Has Tyler Johnson had a good season since he's left Tampa? He's been on the terrible Blackhawks, so it's kind of.
I don't know. It depends on how you view it, I think.
It's worth mentioning he had the same surgery Eichel did.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
That was 2-3 years ago now.
Yeah, and like Eichel is better and also younger, which I think is a big factor. You know, he could afford the time off the ice more than Tyler Johnson could probably. That's a tough one.
I can't believe it's the last year of the 7-year deal. He signed way back when.
For Tyler Johnson?
Yeah. Well, he signed the 7-year deal with the Lightning in 2017, and this is the last year of that deal.
Wow.
Jeez.
It's weird when you like we're doing this and a whole 7-year contract can play out, during the length of our podcast.
I remember talking about the Zaitsev extension. And it's ending this year.
It's over, yeah.
You know what that used to be for us? It was I want to say it was the Leafs were still paying Tim Gleason. they like it felt like for years.
Yeah.
We kept looking at their cap situation going forward. All right, what could they do here? What could they do here? And then it was finally Tim Gleason's coming off the books. Damn it! Finally,
$1.833 million or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good job.
This was the year the Babcock deal ended, right?
Last year.
Last year.
2023 June.
That's why.
Yeah.
He had offers to coach before that, but he turned them down because he was like, no, I'm going to make the Leafs pay full.
Free money, yeah. Just this past offseason, it was done. Wow.
And then he sunk his own boat.
And then we know what happened.
You sunk your battleship.
Tyler
Anyway.
Johnson, he's very interesting.
He's interesting if you're like, if you're in the market for a guy who can play center sometimes. And I don't know why you wouldn't be. Like, are you upset if the Leafs got like Tyler? Let's say it's a 4th round. I don't even know if the Leafs have a 4th, but let's say it's a 4th. You throw it at the Blackhawks. They go, sure. You take TJ. You put him on the 4th line. David Kampf goes down with an injury for a couple of games in round 1, and Tyler Johnson's your 4th line center. Do you care? Like, I feel like that is the kind of depth they need to think about.
What Steve brought up, I think, is really important, is that even at 50% retained, they got to move something. The $2 million is a lot to the Leafs.
And this is where Nick Dowd is sort of perfect, like, because I also think that 3rd line is a mess. Even you put Yarncroke there. Yarncroke, Domi, Robertson is a ton of fun, and I think it gets you through the regular season. And I think they get ritualistically slaughtered the moment the playoff rulebook kicks in. I think they get killed. And like you see them trying different things. And like right now, what is it? Robertson, Domi, obviously because Yarncroke is injured, and Gregor, who every time I watch him, I want to see a better player than I'm watching. Like I'm rooting for the guy. I don't see it. Like it's at the point where I would like to see what Bobby McMahon looks like in that spot. I'm on board with trying something for the forward depth because that bottom 6 ain't it.
And depth scoring has completely disappeared in the last like since they've come back in a little bit before the All-Star break. If you look at the numbers of who scored their last, I think it's 12 goals, it's all out of the core 4. except for one from Benoit in there.
Which is hilarious. And it was an empty netter.
And it was an empty netter. So, like, how much we count in that? It's just depth scoring has completely disappeared on the Leafs, and the defense is getting turnstile too often. There's a lot of issues here if they want to make some sort of run in the playoffs that they got to solve in the next month.
So if you're able to solve the defense, and let's say you get one guy who's expiring and one guy who is on a 2-year deal who's somewhat cheap, like a McCabe type thing, but you move that first rounder, that to me feels like it's worth it, right? Because you're probably able to re-sign whoever it is you brought in if they work out, because Brody's money's coming off the books, and so is Klingberg.
I'd be willing to move a first if it helps solve my next year problems as well.
Okay, so that. Then in terms of depth, like, we're getting pretty thin here because they don't want to move Cowan, Minton, or Robertson.
They shouldn't.
No, there's no way.
They shouldn't.
Like, you can't do that.
It's highly probable, it's highly possible that one or both of Minton or Cowan, again, because Minton was challenging in camp. What if they make the team next year? Like, they could.
They could.
Ideally not. Ideally you have NHLers that'll block their way, but it's possible. And you can't move them for this team. Like, this team isn't the team you trade away somebody who could be really good in the future for. They're not at that level.
Do you give oh my gosh, what's his name? The guy in the AHL who's just absolutely tearing it up, and they keep putting him on PTOs, and then they sign him to a 1-year deal.
Kiefer Bellows.
Kiefer Bellows. Do you finally give him a shot at the NHL level?
I'm surprised they haven't, frankly.
Because doesn't he feel like a guy that's like, man, if he came up and was pretty good, that's a good option for the playoffs, is it not? Or is there some sort of contract thing?
So here's what I'm trying to figure out. If they have the amount of eligible contract slots,
yeah,
depending on how trade deadline day goes, if they sign him to an NHL contract on the day of the trade deadline, would he be eligible for the playoff roster?
I don't know how that works.
I'm pretty sure the answer is yes.
Okay.
But I mean, that's also such a Hail Mary.
Yes, it is.
Like, being good in the AHL does not always translate to being good in the NHL. There's a lot of things they're obviously experimenting, and they're getting to a point where I think ideally when you experiment, you eventually find something that you're satisfied with. And Sheldon Keefe has not indicated he's satisfied one moment ever this season.
Yeah, Brad. Yeah,
Brad.
What
you got to make a change.
Where does Nick Robertson fit into this roster if they go get a center? Because if you're talking about a third line of Yarncroke, Domi, and X center, let's say it's Nick Dowd, where does he play? Like, is he a guy that slots in if one of your top 6 goes down?
Well,
because he's a skill guy?
Earlier, we were talking about guys who you can send down, and we were talking about the goalies. A lot of people aren't going to like it, but you can send him down. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go down, at least as a paper transaction, at some point.
I like Nick Robertson a lot.
I do too.
I think he's playing well.
I do too. I don't know if I would have him on the left or the right, because both him and Yarncroke can play both sides. That's the best version of the third line they have.
Yes.
Is the combination of those three. I'm just wondering how you improve on that and how you also keep Robertson in the lineup, because putting him on the fourth line is a waste of everyone's time.
The other one I want to throw out there, and I don't know why they would do this necessarily, because it's worked out okay, but Tyler Bertuzzi could get moved.
Well, okay. How about this? Do you give
if you're getting
Robertson,
creative,
do you give Robertson a shot with Tavares and Nylander? Put him with 2 really offensive players. Put an offensive player with 2 really offensive players.
But it can't be like a period or a game. It's got to be 5 games.
Right. And you have a nightmare third line to deal with that is Bertuzzi, Domi, Yarncroke. They are forechecking the dog shit out of you. They are in every battle. They're hammering you on the boards. They probably give the puck away every now and then. They probably bang in a goal every now and then. I mean, it's of all the things that they've tried, I'm a little surprised they haven't tried that.
That's a good point. Okay.
But Bertuzzi is the go into the corner and dig it out guy for Tavares and Nylander, and Robertson God love him. Every time he gets hit, he gets back up. But holy shit, does he
gets blown up.
Ranked a
Yeah.
lot.
Jesse, you're looking up something there.
Yeah, the March 8th date is the day you have to be on a roster to be eligible for the playoffs.
Okay.
So I was trying to answer your Kiefer Bellows question.
Kiefer Bellows has got to be. They got to try.
He's not signed to a deal. He'll need to sign some sort of NHL contract with the Leafs by March 8th if they want to play him in the playoffs.